New movie, new posters. Scoob! So Scoob is a new Scooby-Doo movie. We all know who Scooby-Doo is. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We've got some work to do now. Scooby-Doo's been a cartoon since 1969, and now we have a CG animated movie that tells a little bit of the origin story of Mystery Inc., but mostly focuses on a new adventure. Dick Dastardly is out to his old dirty deeds again, and so the gang's gotta stop him. And I was looking forward to this movie. I mean, I'm not a huge Scooby-Doo head, I'm not mainly movies. I watched a little bit of it when I was a kid. I've seen the old cartoon. There's this one movie, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, I remember watching when I was a kid, but that's pretty much it. But it's funny, in the days leading up to this movie's release, I dabbled. I looked into, recent Scooby-Doo iterations, and I was pleasantly surprised by how good Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is. It actually brought that cartoon to a level of maturity. But my point is that was all in prep for this movie, and I'm sorry to say this movie was not the best movie of the year. Yeah, this movie let me down, and I hate that, right? Isn't that the worst when the trailer looks good, but the movie is just not? That always sucks, right? I mean, the first 15 minutes of the movie is the best part of the movie, because that's the origin story part, more specifically when the gang meets up, but that's just the beginning of the movie. The rest of the movie, the rest of the hour and 15 minutes focuses on the new weird plot. I felt like the first 15 minutes of this movie took it back to what Scooby-Doo was. And I liked seeing it, it was the haunted house and the man in the rubber mask and the kids thwarting his scheme, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. But the rest of the movie, it didn't really feel like Scooby-Doo as I know it. I mean, the gang, Mystery Inc., they were done well enough. Daphne, Fred, Velma, Shaggy, Scooby. The voice actors were pretty good. This new weird plot is where Dick Dastardly comes into play. Shaggy and Scooby are separated from the other three. They meet Blue Falcon, who is a character from the original cartoons as well. In this movie, he's voiced by Mark Wahlberg, and you can definitely tell because he sounds like this, because he's Mark Wahlberg, and that's just how he sounds. Blue Falcon and his sidekick Dino Mutt, they're superheroes. They're trying to go after Dick Dastardly as well. So yeah, there are superhero elements in this movie, and again, that's just not how I know Scooby-Doo to be. But honestly, what I didn't like about this movie is just kind of a personal thing with me, and it's the fact that when you have a movie that's based off of something that's been around since the 60s or the 70s, why don't you have a new movie that takes it back to that time? Have the movie take place back then. Because I mean, come on, the gang still dresses up like they're from the 60s, minus the ascot on Fred, which is weird. And they got their Mystery Machine van, which is, the big 60s van with the whole 60s psychedelic-ish design. But no, the movie takes place in present day. They're talking about Netflix and they got cell phones. It just feels very strange. I mean, is there fan service in this movie? Yeah, there's a lot of fan service, a lot of Easter eggs to other Hanna-Barbera cartoons if you look at details in the background. But there's one fan service scene towards the beginning of the movie. It's the best scene in the movie. Again, totally throws it back to what Scooby-Doo originally was. And I loved it. But that's not really good when the fan service scene is the best scene in the movie. The pop culture references in this film were out of control. Not in a good way. I like me some pop culture references in movies, but oh my god, this movie was chock full of them. In some ways, I felt this movie was a big marketing ploy for Warner Brothers, since this is a Warner Brothers movie. They make references to Harry Potter, to DC superheroes, to Lord of the Rings even. They really let that Warner Brothers flag fly. And I like those other properties, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of all of those. But at a point, it started feeling like excess product placement. And that's not good. It's not good. One other thing is just something you're gonna have to get used to if you watch this movie, and that's the fact that this is as kiddie as a kiddie movie gets. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. If you have little kids, they're going to love this movie. And that's really the perspective from which you gotta watch this. It's a kids movie for kids, but again, it's a really, really, really kiddie movie. And you can tell really early on when Shaggy starts talking with Scooby, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. It's a talking dog. The animals are talking. All right, it's a really kiddie movie. I mean, even the animals in Disney animated movies don't talk. That's how kiddie this movie is. Yeah, in a way, I felt kind of weird being 24, almost 25, and watching this movie. I feel like kids watching this movie are going to love it now, but then when they grow up, they're gonna watch it again and be like, I can't believe I used to like that. But then again, there are some jokes that landed with me, some, not a lot. And the ones that did are they're not adult jokes, but they are more PG than G. Little kids are not gonna get that joke. But I, for one, thought it was pretty funny. And there was some cute humor, some things I did laugh out loud at. Sometimes they were pity laughs. I was like, oh, yeah, well, you tried. And the soundtrack didn't really do that much to help this movie either. I'll say the score was really good. It was done by Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL, and it sounded good in the movie. I wish it could have used the original themes more, but that's just me. But the songs that were used in this movie, the licensed songs, no, they did not help at all. Again, I know it's what kids would go for these days. Maybe. And that's partially why I didn't like it, because it just felt like a big corporate thing. The corporate minds were like, alright, what do kids like these days, statistically? Oh, well, they like dabbing, and they like weird techno music, and they like pop culture references. Great, we'll just load our movie with those. Oh, and since we're Warner Brothers, we'll advertise all our other big properties, our popular ones that do well. So make sure there are references to DC superheroes. Make sure there are references to Harry Potter, and even throw in a Lord of the Rings reference in there. Why not? That'll make sense. Have it take place in present day, because kids these days. I don't think kids would mind if the movie took place place back in the 70s. The Iron Giant came out in 1999. I was 4 years old. That movie takes place back in the 50s, and it's still my favorite animated movie of all time. You see what I'm getting at here? Again, I get that it's a personal preference thing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person out there with these opinions. I like Scooby-Doo. Like I said, I've dabbled in it here and there. I don't hate it at all. I've been watching clips of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated because Velma's the best in that show. I'll say Velma in this movie is interesting. They made her Hispanic in this movie. Why? I don't know. Cause diversity, that's why. I'd say it felt weird, but I don't want to come off as a dick, dastardly kind of guy. It was fine. Like I said, the voice acting is really good in this movie. Zac Efron is Fred, fine. Amanda Seyfried is Daphne, fine. Will Forte is Shaggy though. I'm like, is that really the best Shaggy impersonation you could do? I mean, it's Shaggy-ish enough, but I've heard way better Shaggy impressionists out there on YouTube. And Frank Welker as Scooby-Doo, he's been the voice of Scooby-Doo and Fred for years. Decades even. So he would be good as Scooby-Doo, and he was. But it did feel a little weird him going back and forth with Will Forte's Shaggy, who doesn't really sound like Shaggy. It sounded very strange. So yeah, in the end, Scoob, the characters and some of the jokes were fine enough. The animation was really colorful, it was really good, really vibrant, and the music score was good enough. Everything else, though, I just felt was a misfire. The plot didn't really feel like a Scooby-Doo type of plot. There were way too many pop culture references, especially to Warner Brothers stuff, to the point of feeling like product placement. Again, the first 15 minutes of this movie being the best part because they felt like a throwback to what Scooby-Doo was back in the 60s and 70s. That's where this movie should have stayed, but instead, we got this. If I were to give this movie a rating because it was originally going to come out in theaters before this quarantine hit, I would say wait until you can stream this movie online, ironically enough. It had a couple of things that I liked, but in the end, I'm gonna forget all about this movie pretty soon. And that's just a bummer. I fear for my top 10 list at the end of the year. I really do. Maybe I should watch Bad Education and Capone. I don't know. So Scoob, have you watched it? What do you think about it? Are you a Scooby-Doo fan? What is your favorite iteration of Scooby-Doo? Who's your favorite character of the gang? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe. That's the best I can do.